Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode, A Rush Hour. Now, this episode, I'm going to do a little bit different than I normally do. Usually what I do is I'll run through just the main story, and then I'll kind of go over my favorite jokey parts. But I decided with what the story's about, I kind of want to save that for last and start off with the more jokey parts. What I really like is the fact of the matter is, I really like Donovan in this episode. Just been like, man, this guy, this mastermind, he's a pretty smart dude. He might be even smarter than me. And you have Carter being like, get out of here. And he's like, I know, right? It's a scary thing. And Carter's like, no, I mean, get out of here. And then there's a whole situation with Dee Dee basically like, oh, I did this without informing you I was doing it, like taking those pictures of what, their plan of like trying to draw him out. And he's like, why didn't you tell me? She's like, basically, it would have turned into a situation where you were basically going to be all bravado about it, be like, yo, I got this, Dee Dee, don't worry about it, yada, yada, yada. She's basically started saying stuff in Spanish and basically saying, essentially what ended with me stabbing you multiple times with my car keys. I thought it was pretty badass, just because you could just feel the passion and just how much anger is behind those stabs. The fact is that she had to switch over to speaking Spanish when she said that. And then I just love the fact that Carter's like, he's like, yo, Lee, you ever get scared of Dee Dee? And then just like Lee never gave an answer. He's like, I'm a grown man, I ain't afraid of nothing, and walks away. I also like the fact is that Lee ended up getting beat by that dude. I think his name was Bishop, the big dude, and it's like, that's the first time Lee's ever outright got severely whooped in a fight. And so, when the question came up, Carter was like, yeah, tell him about that big dude that kicked your ass, Lee. And Lee didn't say anything. He's just later on, he's like, I can't believe you didn't say anything. He's like, I'm sorry, I choked. He's like, you got embarrassed that you got your ass whooped. And it's like, yeah, because it's never really happened to that degree. So that was kind of interesting. I also love the whole thing in a hospital where you have Gerald being like, please, Carter, don't die. They're like, he's fine. He has a concussion, but he's okay. They're just going to look after him. And Gerald's over there eating his food and whatnot. And he was like, I need a hug. I'm scared. In a situation like this, I need a hug. He goes to hug Lee. Lee's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, it must be easy when you have a heart just frozen with ice. And he's like, you know what? I'm just going to get out. I'm going to take this and leave. It's like, okay, so you're worried about your cousin, being in a situation he is, that he might be hurt. And maybe, just maybe, he might want to eat his food because maybe he needs to keep his energy up, help with the healing process. But now don't worry about it. You go ahead and take the food and you leave. So I really like that. Especially the fact that Carter was like, he's like, no, we gotta get back out there. He sees that pretty nurse coming back in. He's like, or I could stay. I mean, doctor's orders and everything. And Lee and Dee Dee are just like, how can such a smart person just go immediately into an idiot just like that? It's just like, Dee Dee was like, it's like a light switch, and he loses half his IQ. And then his IQ drops down to half, and Lee was like, half is being, generous. But now getting into the real meat of this episode, it's a very interesting episode. The whole thing at the beginning, I thought that was very interesting. Basically, that guy, Walter, at the beginning, him getting killed. Brighton, that's it. Brighton getting killed at the beginning like that, and then his killer walking away, and it's like, wow, that's pretty open and shut right there. Lee and Carter got him, brought him out, and it's like, oh, he immediately gets killed. So I was like, you can already tell that was a very well executed plan. Just on off chance he got captured, it was like, yep, finish him off. So that was kind of it covers your trail pretty well. And that shows you just how tactical the guy in this episode was, who was played by the actor Michael Mosley. I can never remember his name because it's been a while, and I always kept forgetting. It's like Triple K Killer or something like that. He played a serial killer on the show Castle. He made altogether there was 5 or 6 episodes spanned across most of the series that dealt with him. I mean, there was one episode that didn't directly deal with him. So I feel like he does a good job at playing those very meticulous roles, and that's what this role was. I thought, oh, that was kind of interesting. I say that because there was one episode that didn't directly deal with him. It was more he was kind of associated in the episode by name. Nevertheless, that's something else entirely. But the fact of the matter is, he played this guy, and it's okay, you find out this reason. You're okay, this guy, he killed, he could have killed Carter, but he didn't. why. And then you end up, eventually by the end of the episode, you have Carter remembering who this guy is. It's like, oh, this is a guy that Carter saved from a car crash a long time ago. Basically, the guy's wife and son died, and because the car caught on fire, but they ended up dying. But sadly, he lived, but he was severely damaged from it. But Carter came in every day, pop in every once in a while, sat down and talked to him. Didn't really know what to say, but he wanted to do something to kind of keep the guy's spirits up, and was basically saying, hey, what you have to do, the reason why you're here, in the grand scheme of things, maybe you're here to make some wrong right. Maybe that's your purpose here, why you're here and they're not here. Just saying something to help him. And it seems like he sadly took that and twisted it to his he was dead set on revenge, because at the end of the day, revenge is all he had. Like, he had lost everything else in his life, because they were talking about the fact that he had no other family. All he had was his wife and his son, and now that they were gone, he had nothing in this world. All he had was the hate inside of him from, just finding out that basically the car accident was caused by a company deciding that basically it would cost more to recall the car, because basically there was a defect in a piece of it, and it's like, rather than recalling that piece, they let the cars go out, and it led to an accident that killed his wife and son. And it's just basically, it came down to essentially an algorithm, is what one of the guys finally confessed to. It's like, yeah, it just comes down to an algorithm of whether it costs more to recall it or just keep having to pay a little settlement of basically, in Carter's word, basically shut up money. It's like, take this money and go away. Even if it's like paying like $2 million, that's still a lot cheaper than having to recall the car, which, recalling the car would have been the better solution, obviously, because that's kind of his theme. Like, that's why he went after the people he did, that Wakefield guy in Brighton, is because they're people that they took advantage of people. They kind of, at the end of the day, what mattered to them wasn't people. They scammed a lot of people out of their money, and the only thing that mattered at the end of the day was the dollar sign for them. It's like, yeah, I might be doing some bad stuff, some illegal stuff, I might be hurting people, but at the end of the day, if I'm still maintaining a large sum of money, I'm good. I might have to pay out some stuff here and there, but as long as it's chump change out of my pocket, who cares? 2 million, that's nothing compared to the millions upon millions I'm making. So it kind of, the episode brings up a very interesting point of just kind of like what's right, the borderline between justice and revenge. It's like, Carter at that time didn't really know what to say to him, and it's just like, Carter's, as he is now, is like, no, like what I said to you, like, there is no reason behind this stuff. Just like, sad thing is, stuff just happens essentially, and it's like, you doing this isn't going to remedy that situation. But for him, it's like I said, there's nothing left. So it's not easy just to let go of that revenge, especially because that has built up over the years. And it's like, maybe in the earlier days, Carter might have been able to reach him, but at that time, he was a younger cop. He was very inexperienced. It's like, over the years, he's grown and experienced more. So now he, if it was him now versus him then, maybe him now could have helped that guy out a lot more. Maybe he might not be able to. I mean, like I said, with everything going, it's like, when you feel like you have nothing left to fight for or live for, people, tend to do crazy things. And, it's kind of like, legally, obviously, it's wrong. It's not a good thing what he's doing, going after these people, because it's like taking justice in his own hands. But it's like, to an extent, it's like you sympathize with me, you understand why he did what he did, because it's, in the beginning, it just seems like, oh, he's some idealistic, psychopath who's just like going after the rich and powerful. It's like, yes, he started, even from the beginning, before you knew his backstory, you're like, okay, you get the reason why he's doing it, because he's kind of trying to be a Robin Hood to the people, basically taking down these very bad people who pretend to be good people. In his words, these plague-infested rats, because if you don't take care of them, the plague will spread. You can try and cure the plague, but the fact is, as long as the rats live, they'll be around to spread it. You have to kill the rats. That's his word. And it's like, you get where it's coming from. But even Carter tried to explain it to him, like, these people aren't rats. He's like, yeah, some of them aren't, but some are. And that's what he was trying to do justice in the world. He's figured, I wouldn't be able to kill every, bad guy out there, but me, I could start a revolution in a sense, and basically cause a domino effect. My actions will eventually lead to other people following my footsteps. You even see it in this episode where people are so adamant behind his message, like, oh, it's a good thing you're taking care of these bad people. They've done a lot of bad things, and even suggesting next targets for him. But what you have to think about at the end of the day is, yes, these are bad people, but at the same time, they are people. Because let's not forget, even if there are bad people, they still have families. Like, you have Wakefield's son. He was kidnapped earlier in the episode, and it's like, he now has to grow up without a dad. Like, no matter how much of a scumbag his dad was, that was still his dad, and he'll have to grow up, the rest of his life without his dad. And that's the sad fact of the matter is, I mean, really, at the end of the day, his particular revenge was aimed specifically at the company that was connected to his wife and son dying. But, to him, it's like, when he looks at these other companies, these other, like, top 1%ers or whatever, and it's just like seeing them taking advantage of people, it allowed him a deviation from his own revenge, because at the end of the day, it wasn't just about stopping the people that did this to him. It was to make sure what happened to him doesn't happen to other people, like, that people like Brighton and Wakefield didn't end up doing that to other people as well. It's sad. It brings up a very interesting topic, the episode. So that's why I kind of want to save this for last, because it is an interesting conversation of, like, the borderline between justice and just pure outright revenge. It's like, I can get it behind revenge on some occasions, because it's like, yeah, like, when it's depending on the circumstances, it's kind of like, yeah, you can get behind revenge, but at the end of the day, it's not the right way to handle things. And I get it. The justice system doesn't always work out for you. It's like, because even Carter was like, at the end of this, he's like, yo, even these bigwigs will get to go home and not have to suffer ramifications for what they did. But then Lee was like, nope, it was all recorded. Their confessions were recorded. So tomorrow might not be the bright day, that you think it might be for them. So that's something to keep in mind, trying to ease his mind, because at the end of the day, Carter didn't want to kill that guy, because he legitimately, remembering who this guy was, he was like, I understand why you're doing this, but it's still not right, and I can't let you keep hurting these people. Just calm down, just stop this. But, like I said, he was too far going. He was too embedded in his revenge. He had too much hate in his heart, and it's just hard to let that go. And so Carter had to reluctantly put him down. That just sucks. And that kind of weighs on his mind, even at the end of the episode. He's kind of smiling a little bit, and that quickly disappears. So it's because it's still in the back of his mind, because he feels like maybe there's something I could have said or done to reach him. So overall, a very good episode, a very interesting episode that kind of gets you thinking about things a little bit. It just, I don't know, kind of gets you to kind of look at things from a different perspective, kind of look at both perspectives of it. So from his perspective as well as the perspective of the law, So I don't know, like I said, it was a very thought-provoking episode, a very sad episode. That's the reason why I want to save this for last. It's kind of a little sad to go from like all this serious stuff and then the jokey stuff. I kind of do it sometimes, but it's just like, I don't know, this episode just made me think a little bit. So, but that's really all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.